Well, it's good to be here today with you all, and I want to speak about something today that probably quite a few of us will go through in our lives at some point in our lives, not all the time. When we find ourselves in a tight spot and it's almost impossible to get out of that tight spot. I'm speaking to Christians today, and even if you're not a Christian, if you turn your life over to Jesus Christ, then this will apply to you as well. And so there's a time in our lives when we might be in that tight spot and we just can't do anything about it to deliver ourselves from it, get out of it. But we have to remember we have a God who works miracles. And it might be impossible with us, but not with God, because he works miracles. And we've got to also realise that as Christians, we are led by the Spirit of God. And the Spirit of God won't always lead us into nice, rosy, comfortable places. He can lead us at times in our lives to very difficult places, to test us, to make us grow strong and mature. And so when we turn our lives over to Jesus Christ and commit our lives to him, we have to surrender all and say, Lord, wherever you lead, I will follow. That's discipleship. Disciple will follow wherever he leads. He might lead some of you to work for him in this country. He might lead you to do different things in this country. Others he might lead to very difficult countries and to work for him. But all the same, we have to be prepared to follow the Lord. And I just want to bring a few scriptures to us today that will speak about this to help us realise it's not uncommon for this to happen, to be led into difficult spots where God will intervene and deliver us from those spots. It happened all the way through the Bible, from the beginning of time, the Old Testament, from the very beginning of creation, right through to this present time. There's so many instances where God has helped his people. He's still helping us today. And so I just want to have a reading from Exodus chapter 17, verses 1 to 3. They've been delivered from Egypt, a mighty miracle. God delivered them from Egypt through Moses and worked all these miracles until in the end they had to let them go. And then they moved out away from Egypt, and now they're in the wilderness. Then all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin according to the commandment of the Lord and camped in Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people contended with Moses and said, Give us water that we may drink. So Moses said to them, Why do you contend with me? Why do you tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water. And the people complained against Moses and said, Why is it you have brought us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst in this wilderness? So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, What shall I do with this people? They're almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said to Moses, Go on before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand the rod with which you struck the river and go. And behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, and that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So he struck the rock and water gushed out. That was a miracle. That naturally cannot happen. And so the Lord came in when they were thirsty. There was no way of them getting water. And if God hadn't intervened and helped those people, they would have all died of thirst. That's the way God intervenes. There's so many instances in the Bible where God intervenes. We're at our wit's end. What we're going to do, we're thirsty, we're hungry, we're in this desperate spot, this is a dangerous situation, and God steps in and delivers. And then there was another occasion in the wilderness, and they were wandering about in the wilderness, and they had no food. They had no food, and the Lord worked a miracle of provision, providing them with manna, that's bread from heaven, that's angels' food, and also quail. That was a miracle. God blew the quail into the wilderness, and they ate quail. They had meat and they had bread. And that was another incident. That's in Exodus chapter 16, verses 13 and 14, where it says this. And so it was that quails came up that evening and covered the camp. And in the morning the dew lay all around the camp. And when the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a small round substance as fine as frost on the ground. And so when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, What is this? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. And so that was beautiful bread that they had to eat. and also quail. So God came in at those important times to help them. No water, no food, he provided. And then at one point they were moaning and complaining, the children of Israel, and in Numbers 14. Let's have a look, Numbers chapter 14, verse 10. And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle meeting before the children of Israel. What happened was they went to spy out the promised land, and 10 of the spies came back with a bad report, and the people, rather than listen to Joshua and Caleb, listened to the people who brought the bad report back and said, we can't, the giants of the land will never defeat them. And they started moaning, complaining, and what happened was they discouraged, all the people were discouraged, and so they said to Moses, it says all the congregation said to stone Moses and the 2 that had the good report and Joshua, who was with him, to death. Now the Lord appeared at that time again and brought deliverance and dealt with those people who were going to do this and delivered Moses. These are all tight spots. No water, no food, about to be stoned. And so many other incidents in the Bible, every time God stepped in. That's what God's like. He might leave it to a ridiculous point where we're at desperation, we're at our wit's end, and sometimes he does. Sometimes we are tested in that way. He's to test whether we have faith in God. You see, when the 12 spies came back, 10 didn't have faith in God. They moaned and complained. They didn't believe in the power of God. But Joshua and Caleb had a different spirit and they believed. And that's what pleases God, faith. We have to believe God. If the circumstances of Christians brought it down so low that we've lost our faith, then we need to get it back in God again, because he's the only one who can help us. Put your faith in God. He can work the impossible and deliver us all. And then we have an instance in Luke chapter 4, 28-30, when they tried to murder Jesus Christ himself. Luke chapter 4, verse 28 and 30. But what happened was he spoke to the Jews, and then he gave them this message. He was just speaking the truth to them. You'll have to read the story. It's in chapter 4. He went into the synagogue and then he spoke the truth to them, and it's a long story, but you read it. And then after it, because he included the Gentiles in it, he said the salvation, basically was speaking about, look, this gospel, he was basically giving them a taste that the gospel was going to the Gentiles as well. And they rose up, and they were so angry, the Jews, because they thought it was solely for them, the salvation, and for nobody else, the Gentiles, not for the Gentiles. And they rose up and got hold of Jesus, thrust him out of the city, and they led him to the brow of the hill on which their city was built, and that they might throw him over the cliff to murder him. Then passing through the midst of them, he went his way. You see, Jesus wasn't only a man, a perfect man, he was the Son of God. And that's the way God works. Now, if that had been you would have passed through the midst. I've had an instant in my own life in India where that happened, where there was a crowd around me and I passed through the midst. I know what that's like, and God delivered me then. But I know that Jesus was able to walk through, and that was a deliverance there. God stepped in. God stepped in. Jesus was God himself, so he could just pass through. But if that had been anybody else who trusted in God, he would have done that for them as well. And that's what happens. God is a deliverer from tight spots. I just want to finish with this scripture here. It's 1 Corinthians 10, verse 13. And this is it. How God will deliver us from trials and testings in tight spots. No trial has overtaken you that is not faced by others. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tested or tried beyond what you're able to bear. But with the trial will also provide a way out so that you may be able to endure it. There you go. That's it. With the trial, he'll make a way out, so you may be able to endure it. God delivers us from tight spots. So thank you for listening today.